back to another episode of Revealing Biblical Truth. Today we are going to go into Genesis chapters 12 through 17. These chapters deal with Abraham going to Egypt, Lot moving to Sodom, the birth of Ishmael, Yah's covenant with Abraham, and the birth of Isaac. Before we get started, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, share, and comment down below if you have any ideas for future videos. Thanks. So Genesis 12 starts off with Yah telling Abraham to go to Haran, to leave Haran and go to Canaan. He comes to a city called Shechem, and Yah tells him that his seed will have this land. Abraham builds an altar there and then proceeds south because of the famine in the land. So he goes down to Egypt, but he tells Sarah that he's afraid of the Egyptians, that they will kill him because of Sarah, because she's so hot. So he tells her to say that she's his sister, which she kind of is, his half-sister. So they go to Egypt, and Pharaoh takes Sarah into his house, presumably to have his way with her. In turn, Yah plagues Egypt because of her, and Pharaoh finally sends them away. That's the end of chapter 12. Chapter 13 begins, and Abraham goes back to Bethel and Shechem to the altar he built previously. At that time, Abraham was very rich and had many animals. There was a dispute between Abraham's servants and Lot's servants, and it was decided they should separate because it was too much for the land. So Lot chooses the plain of the Dead Sea and goes towards Sodom. Yah tells Abraham that he will give him all the land in the area, and he goes down and dwells in Mamre, which is in Hebron. That ends chapter 13. Chapter 14 starts by talking about King Amraphel and the wars of the plain. And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch the king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer king of Elam, and Tidal king of nations, that these made war with Bera king of Sodom, and with Bersha king of Gomorrah, Shinab king of Admah, and Shemaber king of Zobalim, and king of Bela, which is Zoar. Who is this Amraphel? If we look at the book of Jasher, chapter 11, in verse 6, it states, "And Nimrod dwelt in Babel, and he there renewed his reign over the rest of his subjects, and he reigned securely. And the subjects and the princes of Nimrod called his name Amraphel, saying that at the tower his princes and men fell through his means." So Nimrod was this Amraphel. During the battle of Sodom, they captured Lot and all his goods. One of the people in his group managed to escape and came and told Abraham. So Abraham formed an army and pursued and killed all those who captured him, and brought Lot back with him and all his goods. He told the king of Sodom that he wanted to keep him but leave the goods. So the king of Sodom as well as the king of Salem came to see him. And it said, Melchizedek the king of Salem brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High Yahuwah. And he blessed him, and said, Blessed be Abram of the Most High Elohim, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be the Most High Elohim, which hath delivered thine enemies into thy hand. And he gave him tithes of them all. We need to pause here and discuss Melchizedek. This word is made up of two Hebrew words. Melech means king, and Zedek or Zadik means righteousness. So Melchizedek or Melchizedek is the king of righteousness. It also says he was the king of Salem. This is the same as the city of Jerusalem, or Yerushalayim. But the name Jerusalem needs to be discussed here as well. Salem is shalom, or peace in Hebrew, and Jeru actually comes from a scribal error. The original inhabitants of this city were the Jebusites, who were descendants from Canaan, son of Ham. The Hebrew letter Beit looks very similar to the letter Resh, only the Resh is missing the bottom line. So somewhere along the line, that line was not copied or was not seen, and the name became Jerusalem. But who was Melchizedek? In the book of Jasher chapter 16, it talks about this. And Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, the same was Shem, went out with his men to meet Abram and his people, with bread and wine, and they remained there together in the valley of Melech. Melech is the prefix of Melchizedek, and means king. And Adonizedek blessed Abram, and Abram gave him a tenth of all that he had brought from the spoil of his enemies, for Adonizedek was a priest before Elohim. So Melchizedek was Shem according to that text, and it would make sense as Shem lived in the area, and with his age given in Genesis, he would be alive at that time. It also says that he was a priest and a king. And as we know from the Brit Hadashah, Yahusha was also called a high priest after the order of the Melchizedek. He was both a priest and a king. All throughout the Tanakh, and after the sons of Jacob were born, the kingship and the priesthood were separated. The line of kings went through the tribe of Judah, whereas the line of priests went through the line of Levi. It was only Yahusha that reunited both offices in the same person, just as the original Melchizedek did. It also mentions that he brought forth bread and wine. This is symbolic of the Mashiach's body and blood being shed for us, a prophecy. And that ends chapter 14. In chapter 15, Yah tells Abraham that he will have an heir, but that his descendants will be a stranger in the land and slaves. This prophecy is regarding the Israelites when they were in Egypt. He says, "Now of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward they shall come out with a great substance." The chapter ends with Yah making a covenant with Abraham. Chapter 16 begins, and he says Sarah was barren, but she had a handmaiden called Hagar. Hagar in Hebrew means stranger. Sarah tells Abraham to mate with Hagar so they can have a seed. So Abraham does this and produces Ishmael. But Sarah becomes jealous and sends Hagar away. But the angel of Yahuwah, possibly a pre-incarnate Yahusha, appears to Hagar and tells her to go back and be a servant. So she goes back and has Ishmael, whose name means Yah has heard her affliction. And that's the end of chapter 16. In chapter 17, Yah makes a covenant with Abraham. He changes his name from Abram to Abraham, and he says he will inherit the land, and says that he will be the father of many nations. He says it will be an everlasting covenant. "This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you, and thy seed after thee. Every man-child among you shall be circumcised, and ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man-child in your generations, he that is born in the house, or bought with money of any stranger which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house, and he that is bought with thy money, must needs be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised man-child whose flesh and his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant." Now mind you, this says everlasting covenant. Everlasting means everlasting, which means those who are Abraham's seed, which every follower of Yahusha should be, needs to be circumcised. It says those who do not circumcise have broken his covenant. Two things here. It says they circumcised on the 8th day, not the 1st or 2nd, and it is a medical fact that those children who are circumcised on the 8th day suffer less pain and less infections than those who do it earlier. It was also a prophecy, as Yahusha was born on the 1st day of Tabernacles, which was a high Sabbath, and was circumcised on the 8th day, which was also a high Sabbath and the last day of the feast. Yah then tells Sarah she's going to have a baby, and she laughs. That's why she calls his name Isaac, or Yitzchak. That means laughter. Abraham then circumcised himself and Ishmael, and that ends chapter 17. Next time on Revealing Biblical Truths, we will go into the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Thanks for watching. Till next time, Shalom.